What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Phil from As I Lay Dying. Thank you for your time today, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. You're well into the record cycle for Shaped by Fire. Being that it was such a long time between Awakened, was this considered like conceptually just a direct follow up to Awakened, or was this kind of like a fresh start for As I Lay Dying in a way?
I'd say it was definitely a fresh start. I think, when did Awaken come out? 2012,
Yeah.
I think. So that was a pretty big gap in time from when Shaped by Fire came out, and obviously we'd all gone on our own little journeys in that time period. So yeah, kind of had a fresh perspective coming in, creating new material for this album for sure.
Yeah, one thing I was curious about is because this could just me being a fan of As I Lay Dying, but like if you played me 30 seconds of a song, I could tell that that's off of Frail World's Collapse, that's off of Shadows or Security, Powerless Rise, etc. So has As I Lay Dying always taken a new approach to every album, or do you guys have like a formula that you tend to stick with?
I think there's definitely always new influences and inspirations that come along. The metal genre is, there's definitely our classic metal that, Iron Maiden can play the same song for 40 years and everyone's going to love it. I think with us, there's definitely some things that, we kind of fall back on that kind of makes up the DNA of our sound, but there's always new elements coming out that it's like, hey, that's kind of a cool sound. Like maybe that can kind of be a refreshing sound within our sound. So yeah, there's always new elements, always new approaches that we're trying to have, because I think if we just kept doing the same thing, we'd get, really bored, and so would the fans.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with the new record, because I thought like Shaped by Fire was very different from a song like Undertow, which was very different from like The Wreckage. So it seems like there is plenty of experimentation involved, especially with this album, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's, it's funny because some people who aren't into the album are like, oh, every song sounds the same, and it's like, well, I can tell you there's definitely different chords and different things we tried that I know don't sound the same, but for us, it's always like, yes, we have like the dark thrasher song like Gatekeeper. There's, the kind of, we've always been a pretty melodic and heavy band, so those are always staples of our sound. But yeah, like The Wreckage, I remember, we just kind of did a lot of things that we haven't done before. So I guess they're, just like I said, new elements for us that hopefully, kind of keep things refreshing to everyone.
Yeah, the intro into The Wreckage, I still get goosebumps when I hear that song. I don't think I've heard anything. I can't go back to Awakened or The Powerless Rise or even An Ocean Between Us and really get a reminiscent of that. I thought The Wreckage was really like a standout track on the album.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. Now, one thing I was curious about is because with As I Lay Dying, obviously both Tim and Josh's vocals are very prevalent. So for you, do you almost kind of like have to adjust your instrument style or your chord progression depending on like who's singing in the song in a way?
Well, generally, you don't want to step on, each other's, parts or instrument at the time. Obviously, vocals need to shine, but I think what's good about the metal genre, especially, say, with someone who screams like Tim, is that there can be a lot of instrumentation behind it, since screaming isn't really creating any sort of melody, it's just phrasing, so I think they can kind of work together pretty well. But obviously when a big chorus comes up and it's like the big anthem moment, there has to be a tasteful way of kind of creating those layers that aren't conflicting.
Yeah, especially with a song like Parallels, for example, where like I thought both equally shined in that like it almost seems like, oh, are they changing the chord progression in that? Like, did they have to maybe change the guitar effect or something like that? I was always curious behind that.
Yeah, I think just at least for my approach for metal is guitars have to really shine. So there's we can write a demo without vocals and it's like entertaining because it's like, oh, the guitars are like carrying the song in a way. and then once the vocals kind of get on top, it brings it all together, and it's just, I guess, more ear candy in a way.
Yeah. Do you have like a background in theory on your guitar soloing? Like, do you like know what scale you're working off of, or were you self-taught and like your guitar work is rather improvised?
I did lessons for 6 years when I was younger. I started playing guitar when I was 10, so mostly like kind of dabbled in that stuff. I started with classical, but really my knowledge of music theory, I might know something without even knowing that I really know it.
Yeah.
So just from the amount of time that I've put into playing and learning other people's songs, learning my own little tricks along the way. But I could tell you, a lot of the songs are in minor, in like C minor and stuff like that, and just throughout the years, you just pick up on what works and what doesn't, and sometimes the things that don't work for one song can work for something else.
Yeah, well, I was always impressed, like, with a song like The Sound of Truth, for example, because I know that you and Nick kind of, like, trade off on those guitar solos in a way. So I was, like, wondering, does somebody, like, do you need, like, background music before you lay down the guitar soloing, or would you or Nick lay down the soloing first and then the rest of the band would write over that?
Yeah, generally, the root notes, kind of what the bass would be doing. I think when we had gotten up to that point of the song, it was like, what does the song need? Well, how about a solo? Okay. Well, how about, dual solos, which, for me, being the Iron Maiden fan that I am, I'm like, I love that Dave Murray, Adrian Smith, partnership with their soloing. So it worked out for that song. So it was kind of really quick just putting those chords together. Hey, what gives, a good, non-technical, it's just power chords, but it's creating, it's creating a feeling. It's helping the guitars sort of do the guitar solos ramp up and do their thing and all the way until the end, and then we revisit the chorus again.
Yeah, I've always said that the guitar soloing and vocals are pretty much like the same thing, as they both sometimes like convey a melody and an emotion at the same time as well.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
Yeah. One thing I was really curious about, I know you're not the vocalist of the band, but like, has there ever been a time where maybe Tim or Josh come up with a lyrical subject matter and that could help influence on how you, Nick, and Jordan would maybe write the music in a way?
I would say maybe not like a lyric idea, but I mean, I would say maybe just in talking about life, maybe just talking about certain situations that, if I know someone's going through something that might inspire, like, I mean, obviously, we all went through a lot with, the band, going away for a while, and we kind of knew with this new album, like, this is a big emotional event for us and the fans. So I think we kind of knew we could introduce a lot of elements that could maybe enhance that emotion, and like The Wreckage, like that, honestly, that song lyrically had to deal with, the five of us as band members overcoming, our past and rebuilding our future.
Yeah. Well, I thought a lot of songs demonstrate, like The Toll It Takes, I thought was almost kind of like the icing on the cake in demonstrating that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, I feel like out of all members of As They Lay Dying, you're probably the most prolific member of the entirety because, obviously playing with Woven War, but you also played with Poison Headache. I know that you've toured with guitars for Nails and Seosin. So is there maybe a different mind frame depending on the project that you're working with, or is there kind of like a usual method behind the madness that applies to everything?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, there's little tricks of your own that you have, and your arsenal of ideas that you want to depend and rely on when that time comes up. But it's crazy because I've always kind of had to multitask and jump back and forth with the different sounds going on. If I'm writing a Woven War record while touring with Seosin, and Nails and doing the Poison Headache stuff, it's like, geez, like, what am I doing right now? Like, how am I able to focus? So it does, just being mindful of like, all right, I'm doing this. What do I generally do for this? If I need to write something real quick, if I got to perform something, like, I just kind of have to spend time with it, and just, there's going to be mistakes along the way, but, there's definitely refining a lot of new ideas and stuff too. So yeah, I don't know. There's some sort of method to the madness, I guess, but overall, like, I just enjoy being part of any musical sound, and anything that's exciting for me.
Yeah, I have to say that just reading up on you, I'm getting overwhelmed by it. Like, how do you handle so much?
I don't know. I like the challenge, I guess. To put it simply, I find just I love other guitar players. Like, for my favorite bands have to have really good guitar players. So if a band where I admire the guitar playing or just them musically are like, hey, you want to play with us? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to play with you. Like, that's awesome. Like, that kind of is reshaping my musical structure, and there's something more to be learned for me, because doing the same thing for too long can get really stale. So I'm always excited to play with other people.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about maybe doing a solo instrumental record, maybe taking the Animals as Leaders route in a way?
It's so funny. I tour managed Animals as Leaders for a few years, and I definitely picked up on a lot of just insanity with their musicianship. And I've thought of going down a more progressive road. And so I would say it's not off the table. Maybe starting with one song could be a cool little thing. I'm just not a huge, like write a solo, play a solo for like 4 minutes kind of guy. So I'd have to come up with a lot of different dynamic layers and elements to make an instrumental thing kind of cool. So yeah, I would say maybe somewhere down the line I could focus on that.
Yeah, like sometimes you don't want to be the type of band where somebody could show up like 40 minutes late and then they're just getting into the middle of the solo or something like that.
Yeah, like it's I mean, trust me, Pink Floyd's one of my favorite bands, so I could listen to David Gilmour play guitar all day. But with people's attention spans these days, and my attention span, I'm always like, get to the point and keep things short and sweet, trim the fat, all that. So just a really concise song is what I'm about. So it'd have to work within that kind of structure, I guess.
Yeah. In order to like get inspired to write, whether it is for As I Lay Dying or the 20 other projects that you're involved with, do you have to kind of like put yourself in a certain place? Like, do you need to be alone with your guitar with nobody around, or does inspiration sometimes or ideas just come out of the blue?
It's a little bit of both. I would say there's definitely more of like hitting a wall versus just ideas flowing out of me. So I kind of have to work through that. It's not really necessarily writer's block, but it's like, how do you, when you wake up and you start your day and you're like, all right, well, I'm going to write, the biggest song of my career. Like, it's like, you got to kind of find inspiration. Sometimes I just put on Chopin for all morning, and I sometimes I just don't even touch the guitar, and I just kind of think about ideas that I haven't done before, what could be exciting for me, exciting for the listener, the fans. So I think it's a struggle at times, but once the ideas kind of start flowing, there's times where I'm like, man, I just wrote a song in like half a day. Like, inspiration really strikes. So it's just kind of working through it, not giving up when it seems like a daunting task. It's like, hey, this is what I signed up for. This is what I want to do. It's not going to be easy, but if it was easy for everyone, then everyone would be doing it. So I just push through it.
Yeah, and you led me into my next question. Like, do you, especially with As I Lay Dying, especially because you do kind of like follow like a verse chorus sort of structure, do you sometimes do you and the band like go in with a preconceived idea? Okay, Shaped by Fire, first album in a long time, it has to sound like this, or is there like a lot of improvising involved with you guys as a band?
I think there's like a healthy amount of both. You know, the kind of arrangements that we do aren't anything crazy, and it's kind of a proven, you know, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. So it's nothing crazy, but, you know, that's just the formula that works for most bands, or, you know, most genres.
Yeah.
And that's something that keeps things clear and concise. But my approach is that I hate the copy and paste method of things that, you know, digital, you know, interface, or like DAWs, like Pro Tools, you can easily copy and paste a part. All right, cool. The guitars from verse 1 are now verse 2. I can't do that, so I always try to sprinkle in little things. Hey, we're going to add guitar harmonies to make this part different. Hey, we're going to accent the new drums that were tracked on this part. So I always feel like from start to finish, there's newer elements going along throughout the entire song, and not just, I've heard this already before.
Yeah, understand. And I mean, if you don't mind me, but a lot of people call you guys metalcore, but I never really understood what that term means. And for I ask people, what is metalcore? They say, oh, it's music that has singing and screaming. I'm like, okay, so are you going to call Opeth metalcore? Are you going to call Fear Factory metalcore? Deftones metalcore? Like, where does the idea for metalcore come from, you think?
So it totally metal and hardcore, so totally makes sense. And I used to think that metalcore was a bad word, and you know, I just wanted to be a metal band, and generally we are, because we have elements that a lot of metalcore bands, I guess, don't do. But I've learned to embrace it, that, hey, like, if, you know, people want to call maybe us, Killswitch, Lamb of God, is some of the Unearthed, some of the, you know, pioneers of the metalcore genre. It's like, cool. Like, I think that's kind of like flattering. That's like, we are fans of metal and hardcore, and those are very strong elements of our sound. So I embrace it more these days. I just think, you know, a lot of metalcore bands aren't maybe doing as much exciting stuff, so I think the genre kind of gets devalued in a way. So, but I think, you know, over time, you know, the best will kind of, you know, rise to the top and make it through, and, you know, kind of be staples, you know, in just the heavy music genre overall.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, you mentioned like metalcore. The funniest thing is when people just say a word and add the word core at the end of it, and then like you go on like Wikipedia, and then there's only like 2 bands in that entire subgenre.
Oh yeah. Well, nowadays it's all about, you know, where to fit people into this category, this genre, and it's like, oh man, can't we all just be like metal bands?
Yeah,
but it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, things are kind of compartmentalized, but, like, you know, just listen to everything, you know, and you'll find what you like. I stumbled upon you guys by accident, so.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's always kind of makes it the most exciting, you know, versus a friend who's hyping you up, you know, like, and like my friends who hype albums up to me, I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll get to it, and I you know, it's never as exciting as when they were telling me about it. So hearing something on accident, it feels like you just found something, and it's like, it's yours, you know?
Yeah, definitely. You ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview?
Difficult or typical?
Difficult.
Okay, yeah, sure.
All right, because I stumble everybody with this. How do you know when a song is done?
When the label has approved it.
All right, fair enough.
Well, then you know it's going off to be printed. I guess in the songwriting process, and I tell people this all the time. It's you know, not just me, but I'm sure every person creating music. You write it for yourself. You write something that you're excited about, and it always comes to you first. And then because you have a band, These guys are going to be playing it. They need to make it part of theirs as well. So they need to like it. And they're like the first step in the filtering process. And say when I write a demo and I send it out to the guys and I get, enthusiasm about it, I'm like, wow, well, this is going to make the record, or else you don't even get a response back from the guys, or it's just like a one-word answer. But if it's like they're excited, this is probably going to make the record. Okay. And then, at some point it's going to get to the fans, and then that's when I think the ultimate, like, wow, this has kind of gone through all the steps to kind of reach other people and to see their excitement. It like brings excitement back to me, or back to the band. So, but generally, once the band signs off on it, we're in the studio tracking it, that thing's going on the record. Or we save it as like kind of a B-side or something.
Yeah, you ever worried that a B-side or a song you leave out will be a B-side one day, just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
That would be amazing, actually. Who doesn't want a B-side to be huge?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, it's, we just released the B-side, Destruction or Strength. I really like that song. I wanted to be on the album, but it kind of made sense to the way it sat with the whole album. It's like, we'll just kind of leave this off and just have it in our back pocket for someday, so.
Yeah. I have a couple more questions for you. I have yet to see As I Lay Dying live, and it's killing me. I'm hoping that, with the whole thing happening now, hopefully maybe the tour coming this summer will eventually happen or something like that. But when it comes to playing live, whether it's, regardless of what band you're in, is there a similar maybe creative energy into playing live versus when you're in the album or in the studio? Or is it almost kind of like a separate art altogether with crowd interaction?
Yeah, the performance side is definitely, more intense for sure. Feeling like you have to entertain these people. It's, when they listen to a CD at home, it's like, hey, they're entertained by just the music element, but live, it's the lights, the energy that we give off, because we also need energy from the crowd. Our best shows, we could play like crap, but if the crowd is going insane, we feed off of that, and like we have a better time. It's, and depending on the band, it's definitely a different energy. It's with As I Lay Dying, I can look at all the other guys and I'm like, everyone's doing what they've been doing for so many years now already. But with any new band, it's like, this is like playing with Seosin, and Anthony, 10 seconds into the first song comes out and he starts biting my shoulder and then like jerking me around like crazy. And I'm like, what is this animal doing to me? But it like jolts my system, and I'm like, man, like, all right, like I'm awake, I'm here, I'm present. I just think, ultimately it's about the fans, giving them an experience, because if they leave that show saying that was the best show I've ever seen, I'm going to tell everyone about it. That's going to make, more people interested in coming and seeing us and having a great time as well.
Do you almost have to I'd imagine there's like choreography that you have to rehearse, like with crowd interaction, right? Like, do you guys set up like dummies or dolls to like pretend to interact with an audience or something like that?
Oh, no. I think it's just when we were all teenagers, just as all musicians when they were in high school can relate to, and you're just figuring it out when you get on stage for the first time and there's people staring right back at me, what do I do? You're definitely awkward guy for a long time, and you kind of have to over the years you build up that confidence to where it's like, hey, I'm just gonna go out and do my thing. And I think that it just needs to be that, is not overthought, not overcomplicated. Just go out, enjoy yourself, and just have energy, and like I said, the fans will feed off of that, and it comes right back to us.
Definitely. I have two more questions for you. Coming from like the Orange County, San Diego, California scene, because I almost feel like going back to the whole quote unquote metalcore sound. There were two capitals of it. One was in Massachusetts with Killswitch and All That Remains and Unearth and whatever. And then there was you guys, I feel like with you guys, Atreyu, Avenged Sevenfold, Bleeding Through, 18 Visions. Was there kind of like a scene in San Diego that you guys like cut your teeth in at the time, or did you guys prefer to like go outside California more in order to get the name out there?
Well, I'm younger than when the band at that time.
Yeah, Frail Worlds Collapse was your first time with the band, right?
We'll say Frail Words. I was still in high school when that came, or just, I was still in high school. And I was playing shows, my high school band. That's how I was playing shows, like when Norma Jean would come through, Under Oath, open for As Lay Dying. So I got to know a lot of the guys. And they 18 Visions, Bleeding Through, Throwdown, all those bands, that was sort of the clique. But it wasn't necessarily like San Diego was the hub for us, where As Lay Dying, I guess, kind of fit in. It was out in Corona, where there's a venue called the Showcase Theater. So that's east of Orange County in LA. And the promoter, they put on like all the hardcore shows. So that's kind of where Orange County and San Diego and LA sort of like blended together. So I remember I'd go out to Pomona and Corona. For people not from this area, they're gonna be like, "What the hell are those places?"
Especially with the timing now.
Right.
I was like, no pun intended. No pun intended.
Yeah, don't go out to Corona now. I mean, that venue's gone. But that was sort of like the hub for where all the good shows were happening, and I remember just like that it was an exciting time, and so it makes sense that I guess we were kind of lumped in with the Orange County scene at the time, because there really wasn't much else in San Diego or LA with like our kind of metal.
Yeah, I mean, people think of LA metal, they'll immediately think Motley Crue or, the glam bands, and you guys are definitely not that. Not yet. Yeah, man, I'm excited now to see what the next album sounds like. And the final question I wanted to ask you, and not that I imagine that you guys are doubting it, but like you guys have some of the most dedicated fans I've ever seen. I haven't yet to see you guys play live, but I have yet to also go to a single metal show without seeing at least one or two As They Lay Dying shirts. And seeing Woven War twice and seeing everybody, with their shirts supporting you guys. When you hear on how music that you've created really resonates with people or has helped them through a difficult time or something like that, does that change in how you look at yourself as an artist in a way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it first off, makes me feel somewhat valid that I'm like, oh, I'm doing something right. If this is, making other people feel good, kind of giving them a release, I guess. Like, I get the validation, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. But yeah, it's definitely, I've always kind of, when I was younger, I was always so much like in my own head of like, just pushing myself to write what I thought was the best. But as I've gotten older and seeing kind of the joy and the excitement that the fans have for us, even after all these years, and giving us this second chance to come back, it's like such a cool thing. It's more like it's just like touching. It's just like, it's so cool that anyone could be so excited about something I do, and so it kind of keeps me motivated. It's I don't want to let them down. Everyone needs their kind of cup of coffee, kind of their type of metal that they need, and it's like, hey, this is what I want to keep providing for the people who support us the most, and our fans really are like amazing. Even though you haven't gone to any shows, there's so many fans that are like, I've seen you like 12 times, and it's like, geez, they just keep coming back. And so, and they, they're just as excited this last show they saw as the first time they saw us. So it's really cool, and it's, gonna hopefully, just keep us doing what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Is there just anything with the band that you would like to promote? The tour with Whitechapel and Shadow of Intent at the moment. I mean, I think it's fair to say with everything happening now, that might not be a possibility.
Uh, I can't really say anything other than we are monitoring all just, just how this whole pandemic is panning out. So we'll make an announcement shortly, kind of give an update to all the fans on that tour. But if you're reading the signs in all the news articles coming out, it's not looking very favorable for live touring for the rest of the year, at least the rest of the year.
Yeah. Is there any way though that the fans can support you guys or any of the bands that you're touring with at the moment, like your merch store or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, for any bands, that's definitely the easiest to help. It's really tough to, like, obviously people are out of work, so they don't really have much money to just spend on a metal shirt right now. But I think just supporting, the bands however you can through their merch is the easiest way. That would be it.
Awesome. Well, Phil, thanks so much. Everybody, Phil from As They Lay Dying, Shaped by Fire, out now on Nuclear Blast. Buy it now while supplies last forever, and we'll see you next time on Heavy New York.